They thought I was already halfway buried. They thought an old man with shaky hands and a slow walk couldn't possibly see through their schemes. They thought my love, my money, my house, my entire life would fall into their greedy palms the moment I exhaled my last breath. They were wrong. And the night I overheard them planning my funeral before I was even sick, that was the night something inside me snapped. The house was too quiet after Martha died. 27 years of chatter, laughter, and fights that always ended with her rolling her eyes. All gone in an instant. My children, Cole and Diane, came around at first, brought casseroles, fussed over me, said the right things. But it didn't take long before their sympathy turned into calculation. I first noticed it in Diane's voice. "Dad, have you thought about simplifying? The house is too big for you. You could sign it over now, save us the trouble later. Save us the trouble later." She said it like I was an errand she needed to check off her list. Cole wasn't much better. He started asking about my accounts like it was casual conversation. "How much do you have left from the business sale, Dad? You don't want that sitting around unprotected. I could help move it." I'd built Miller Roofing from the ground up. 40 years on ladders, sunburned neck, cracked hands. Sold it 2 years ago for a fair sum. Enough to keep me comfortable until I couldn't swing a hammer anymore. They knew the number, or thought they did. What they didn't know was how much I'd learned over those 40 years about survival, leverage, and patience. The real blow came one Sunday afternoon. I'd come back from church, still wearing the suit Martha always said made me look distinguished. I stopped in the hallway when I heard voices in the kitchen. Cole's low rumble. Diane's sharp edge. "He's not going to last long. Stress is catching up with him. Once he's gone, the place is ours." I already checked property values. We could sell within a month. My chest tightened, but I stayed hidden, listening. "And the accounts?" Diane asked. "Relax. I've been nudging him to add me as joint holder. If not, we'll challenge the will. Worst case, we tie it up in court and bleed it dry. He won't be around to complain." They laughed. My own flesh and blood. Laughing about carving me up like leftovers. I remember gripping the door frame, nails digging into wood. For a second, the room spun, but then a cold clarity settled over me. Martha's voice echoed in my head. "Don't give them so much that they forget to be grateful." Too late. They'd forgotten. That night, I sat in my office surrounded by files, old contracts, tax papers. My desk lamp hummed, casting a yellow glow over Martha's framed photo. She was smiling at me like she always did when she knew I was about to do something reckless. But this wasn't reckless. This was strategy. They thought they'd inherit everything. My house, my savings, my land upstate. They thought I'd keep playing the role of the generous fool. But I'd already been talking to an old friend, Victor Hahn, attorney at law. We'd drawn up papers no one knew about. Papers that would burn every expectation my children had. The next week, I played my part. I let Diane drive me to the pharmacy. I let Cole hover when I balanced my checkbook. I even pretended to forget where I'd left my car keys, just to see that smug flicker in his eyes. "Poor old man," his expression said. "Poor old man," Diane's sigh confirmed. I smiled. Let them think it. The weaker I looked, the bolder they became. 3 days later, I forgot my phone in the kitchen again. I walked back just in time to hear Diane whispering to Cole. "We should start planning the estate sale. I'll take the dining set. You can flip the workshop tools." He won't argue. Not argue. As if I were already gone. I walked in, slow, deliberate, my cane tapping against the tile. Their faces froze, like kids caught stealing from the cookie jar. "You two planning something I should know about?" I asked lightly. Cole coughed. Diane forced a laugh. "Just talking about, spring cleaning." I nodded, pretending to believe them. "Good idea. Some things do need to be cleared out." If only they knew what I meant. That night, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside, under a false panel, lay the document Victor had drafted, a binding trust. Every dollar, every brick, every nail I owned had been signed over. But not to them. The trust bore one purpose: scholarships for underprivileged kids in my county. The kind of kids who worked 2 jobs just to afford a semester. The kind of kids who reminded me of myself at 17, before roofing turned me into leather and bone. My children would get nothing. But I wasn't finished. The revenge wasn't just about money. It was about revelation, about watching their faces when they realized the man they dismissed as weak had been pulling strings the whole time. The reading of the will would come soon enough. But until then, I let them dig their own graves with greed. And when they finally tumbled in, I'd be there, steady, sharp, smiling the way Martha used to when she knew I had the upper hand. I could already picture it. The lawyer's office, Diane leaning forward with hunger, Cole tapping his foot with impatience. And then the silence when they heard the words. Not heirs, not beneficiaries, not even mentioned, except in one brutal sentence I'd made Victor include. No direct descendant shall inherit, on account of demonstrated lack of loyalty and respect. Let them choke on that. I closed the drawer, turned off the lamp, and looked up at Martha's picture. Don't worry, love, I whispered. They'll get exactly what they deserve. And for the first time in months, I slept soundly. The smell of burnt coffee hit me before I even stepped into the kitchen. Diane was already there, pacing with her phone in hand, her voice sharp enough to slice through the morning silence. Yes, I'll confirm the valuation this afternoon. The house is in prime condition. Hardwood floors, updated plumbing, perfect for a quick sale. Oh, don't worry, my father won't resist. He's too tired to argue. She turned and nearly jumped out of her skin when she saw me standing in the doorway. Dad, she said, plastering on that fake daughterly smile. Didn't hear you get up. I shuffled forward with my cane, slow and deliberate, the way they expected. Sleep's not what it used to be. Who were you talking to? Just a friend, she muttered, sliding her phone into her pocket. Her eyes betrayed her. Greed has a shine to it, like oil slick on water. I'd seen it before, in contractors who cut corners, in salesmen who thought they could trick me. And now, in my own daughter. That evening Cole showed up unannounced, still in his office suit, tie loosened like he owned the place. He poured himself a drink from my liquor cabinet before even saying hello. Dad, we need to talk. He dropped into Martha's old armchair, the one she used to read in by the window. His bulk looked wrong in it. Disrespectful. I've been looking into nursing facilities. Good ones, he said, swirling the glass. Places where you'd be comfortable, looked after. Safe. Safe. The word tasted like poison in my ears. You want me out of my own house. I didn't phrase it as a question. Cole shrugged, pretending at compassion. Come on, Dad. You're getting older. Diane and I can't always be around. Wouldn't it be better to have professionals handle things? My jaw tightened, but I forced a weak smile. Maybe. We'll see. I leaned back, pretending to think it over. Inside, my mind was already moving pieces across the board. Later that night, I made my first countermove. I went to my study, pulled out my old leather notebook, and began jotting down every word they'd said in the past week. Every slip, every hint, every plan. Documentation, the same habit that kept my roofing business alive through audits and lawsuits. But I needed more than notes. I needed witnesses. The next morning, I drove, slowly, deliberately, to the diner in town where I used to meet suppliers. I knew who'd be there. Hank, my old foreman, the man who'd been with me 20 years on rooftops through heat waves and blizzards. Hell, Doug, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Haven't seen you in a while. What brings you here? I ordered black coffee, let the silence stretch, then leaned in. Hank, I need a favor. Might be the most important one I've ever asked. I told him just enough, that my kids were circling, that they thought I was too weak to fight back. Hank's face darkened. You want me to keep an ear open around town? He asked. Not just that. I want you here, in the house, when the time comes. A witness. Someone they can't brush off. His fist hit the table, rattling the salt shaker. Say the word, Doug. I'll be there. Good. One piece in place. That afternoon, Diane cornered me with papers. Dad, I had these drawn up. Just to simplify things. Power of attorney, nothing serious. Just makes it easier for me and Cole to handle bills, make decisions, that sort of thing. Her tone was honey, but her eyes were knives. I took the papers, my hands shaking just enough to sell the act. You really think I need this? Of course. You don't want the stress. I nodded, folded the papers neatly, and slid them into my desk drawer. She thought I'd signed them without reading. She thought she had me cornered. But by nightfall, Victor, my lawyer, had a scanned copy in his inbox. He replied within the hour, classic overreach. Illegal as hell if they pressure you. Sit tight. The cracks were widening. Cole wanted me locked away. Diane wanted me stripped of rights. Both of them too impatient to hide it anymore. And me? I sat in my study with Martha's photo watching over me, feeling the cold satisfaction of a soldier who knows the ambush has already begun. Let them come closer. Let them think I'm pliable, broken. Every step they took toward their prize was one step deeper into the trap. The last thing I heard before sleep was Diane's voice drifting through the vent from the kitchen below. Once he signs, we're free. A month, maybe less. Finally, everything will be ours. I smiled in the dark. Not yours. Never yours. By the third week, their patience had worn thin. They didn't even bother pretending anymore. Cole stormed into the living room one evening while I was dozing in Martha's recliner. He didn't knock, didn't greet me. He just dropped a folder on my lap. Dad, sign these. Today. My eyes flicked to the bold letters across the top. Transfer of property rights. The audacity nearly made me laugh. Diane followed him in, clutching her tablet, her tone sharp and brittle. It's just paperwork. A formality. You'll still live here, Dad. Nothing changes. We just need the title in our names for management purposes. I studied their faces. They weren't asking. They were issuing orders. So I put on the act. My hands trembled, my voice wavered. I don't know. Martha would have wanted me to think carefully about this. Cole leaned down until his face was inches from mine. His breath stank of whiskey. Martha's not here, old man. We are. Do the smart thing. The word old man stung, but I let it show on my face. They mistook it for weakness. Let me sleep on it, I whispered. Diane rolled her eyes. Tomorrow, then. First thing. They left the folder on the coffee table like a time bomb. That night, I opened the folder in my study. Of course, Victor had warned me this would come. Fraudulent clauses, buried fine print, all designed to strip me of ownership. I photographed every page and emailed them to him. Within an hour, his reply came back. Perfect. Exactly what we need. Keep stringing them along. I closed the laptop, heart steady. It was time to test the waters, to deliver my first real blow. The next morning, I called Diane into the kitchen. The smell of bacon and coffee hung in the air, but her eyes went straight to the folder I'd moved onto the counter. Did you sign? She demanded. I slid it back to her. Not yet, but I did make some calls. Her brow furrowed. What calls? I kept my voice casual. Just the bank. Asked them to flag any unusual requests on my accounts. They told me someone's been trying to access my balances online. Multiple times. Her face drained of color. She covered it quickly with a laugh. Banks make mistakes all the time, Dad. Do they? I let my gaze linger on her. Funny thing, they traced the login attempts back to this address. She froze. Her smile faltered. That's impossible, she stammered. Is it? I asked softly. I watched panic flicker across her features before she bolted from the kitchen. A small test, and already cracks were showing. That evening, Hank stopped by. He brought a six-pack, just like old times, and we sat on the porch as the sun dipped low. They're getting bolder, I told him, keeping my voice low. I'll say, Hank muttered. Saw Diane at the courthouse this morning. She was talking to some clerk about probate procedures. Probate. I repeated, the word sour on my tongue. As if I'm already gone. Hank's jaw tightened. You just say the word, Doug. I'll back you up. Testify, whatever you need. I gripped his hand, rough and calloused like mine. Not yet. Let them think they're winning. But the test wasn't over. I had one more card to play. That weekend, I invited both of them over for dinner. A peace offering. I cooked Martha's pot roast, set the table with her china. They arrived suspicious, but the smell of food softened them. Halfway through the meal, I cleared my throat. Kids, I've been thinking. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's time I let go of some responsibilities. Cole's fork clattered against his plate. Diane's eyes lit up. So you'll sign? She asked eagerly. I nodded slowly. But I want to do it properly. With witnesses. At the lawyer's office. For a second, panic flashed across Cole's face. He recovered quickly, forcing a grin. Of course, Dad. Whatever makes you comfortable. I chewed another bite of roast, hiding my smile. Perfect. I just baited the trap. Later that night, alone in my study, I opened Victor's latest email. It was short, direct, exactly what I needed. Bring them in. Let them press you in front of me. I'll handle the rest. I leaned back in my chair, Martha's photo watching me from the desk. The first test had worked. Diane rattled, cold desperate. They thought they were inches from victory. But soon, they'd be standing in Victor's office, demanding their inheritance early, and that's when the ground would disappear beneath their feet. Victor Hahn's office smelled like leather and ink. The walls were lined with thick legal books, spines cracked from years of battles won and lost. Heavy afternoon light slanted through the blinds, striping his mahogany desk in sharp bars of gold. It was the kind of room that made people nervous. Exactly what I wanted. Cole and Diane sat stiffly in front of the desk. Cole tugged at his tie, sweat already shining at his temples. Diane, arms crossed, tried to look calm, but her foot tapped the floor like a ticking clock. Victor glanced at me, then at them. His voice was calm, measured. Mr. Miller asked me to review the documents you brought him. Let's discuss them. Cole leaned forward, confidence rushing back now that he was on familiar ground. There's nothing complicated here. Just a simple transfer of property. Our father wants to make sure everything is handled smoothly. Isn't that right, Dad? I let my shoulders sag, eyes downcast. That's what you said, yes. Diane pounced. Exactly. We're just trying to save him stress. He's too tired to manage these things. Better to put them in our hands. Victor slid his reading glasses down his nose, lifted the folder they'd forced on me, and spread the papers across his desk. The silence stretched as he leafed through them one by one, tapping occasionally with his pen. Finally, he looked up. His expression had sharpened. Did either of you draft these documents? Diane hesitated. We had a friend help. A friend. Victor's tone turned colder. Because these aren't standard transfers. These are coercive. They remove Mr. Miller's ownership rights entirely and give you full control without provision for his care. Cole shifted in his seat. It's just legal phrasing. Everyone uses it. Victor leaned forward, his pen clicking softly against the desk. No, Mr. Miller. This is fraud. If I filed these documents as written, it would constitute theft. And if I handed them to the district attorney, it would constitute evidence. The room went dead silent. Diane's jaw dropped. Cole's face flushed deep red. I lifted my eyes for the first time, letting them see something they hadn't seen in weeks, the steel under the wrinkles. Fraud, I repeated softly. That's what I thought. Diane stammered. Dad, W. Didn't mean. Didn't mean? My voice cut through her excuse. I heard you both. In my own kitchen, planning the sale, splitting the furniture, counting the money. Before I was even gone. Cole opened his mouth, but Victor held up a hand. Careful, Mr. Miller. Anything you say now could be entered into record if this escalates. And trust me, it can escalate quickly. Diane turned pale. We were just trying to... To what? I snapped, finally letting the anger show. Take everything I built? Every nail I hammered, every dollar I saved? You thought I was too old to notice. Too weak to fight. I stood, slow and deliberate, leaning on my cane. The air in the room felt heavier now. Cole couldn't meet my eyes. Diane blinked rapidly, as if she might cry. Victor closed the folder with a sharp snap. Mr. Miller, I suggest we hold these documents as evidence. I'll file the trust papers we prepared instead. That way, your estate is fully protected. Do it, I said. Cole looked up, alarm in his eyes. Trust papers? What trust papers? I let the silence hang before answering. The ones that guarantee neither of you see a single cent. Not a penny. Not a nail from my workshop. Nothing. Diane gasped. You can't. I can. I said, my voice flat as stone. And I already did. The color drained from their faces. Victor slid the folder back into his drawer, his tone brisk, professional, final. Meeting adjourned. I walked toward the door, each step slow, deliberate, echoing in the silence. Before leaving, I turned back just once. You wanted my legacy? I said. You'll get it, in the form of your names tied to fraud charges if you push me again. That's what you've earned. And then I left them sitting there, pale and shaking, in a lawyer's office that suddenly felt like a courtroom. That night, back in my study, I wrote in my notebook, Phase 1 complete. They know they've lost the will. Time to take more from them. Their pride, their comfort, their reputation. The real war had only just begun. The storm always comes after the silence. And I could smell it brewing in my own house. For 3 days, Diane and Cole went quiet. No phone calls. No sudden visits. No more. Dad, let's just sign this. They were regrouping, licking their wounds after Victor's office crushed their little scheme. But quiet doesn't mean peace. Quiet means plotting. The first sign came on a Thursday morning. The doorbell rang, sharp, impatient. I opened it to find a man in a blazer holding a clipboard. Mr. Miller? I'm from Evergreen Senior Living. We're here to confirm your move-in date. My blood went cold, though my face stayed calm. My what? He glanced at his clipboard. Your children contacted us. Said you'd been struggling. They've already put down a deposit. We have a suite ready. I smiled thinly. Is that so? Why don't you leave me a brochure? He hesitated, clearly confused, but handed me the glossy pamphlet. Smiling seniors, golf carts, bland promises of independence with support. I closed the door before he could say more. So, they weren't done. If they couldn't get my house through paperwork, they'd try to remove me from it physically. That night, I waited. My study lamp glowed warm on Martha's photo, her smile calm, steady. By 9, the sound of tires crunched on the driveway. Voices followed. Cole's sharp bark, Diane's hurried whisper. They didn't knock. They barged in like owners. Dad, we need to talk. Diane's voice was brittle, rehearsed. It's for your own good. Cole crossed his arms. You're not safe here alone. You forget things. You could fall. We've arranged better care for you. Better care, I repeated softly. Or better access. Cole's jaw tightened. Don't start. I stood slowly, cane steady in my hand. My eyes locked on his, cold and unblinking. You want me out of this house. Say it plain. He shifted, glanced at Diane. She stepped forward. It's not like that. We're thinking of your future. You don't need this place anymore. You'll be comfortable. Comfortable. My voice cracked like a whip. This is the house I built. Every nail. Every board. With your mother. You call that disposable? Their silence was answer enough. I'd been waiting for this moment. Hank, I called, loud enough to make them flinch. Footsteps echoed from the back hallway. My old foreman stepped out, broad-shouldered, his expression carved from stone. He'd been nursing a beer in my kitchen, waiting for this cue. Diane froze. What's he doing here? Hank folded his arms. Witnessing. Doug told me you'd try something. Looks like he was right. Cole bristled. This is a family matter. No, I cut him off. It's evidence. Every word you've just said has been recorded. I tapped the small device on the table. Its red light blinked steadily. Diane's face drained of color. You set us up. No, I said calmly. You set yourselves up. I just let the tape roll. Cole tried to recover, his voice dripping with false authority. This won't hold. You can't threaten us with a toy recorder. I leaned on the cane, my voice low, steady. Maybe not. But the police might be interested in children attempting to force their father into a facility against his will. Or the newspaper. Or your precious colleagues. Diane whispered, Dad, please. But there was no softness left in me. You wanted me gone. Now the whole town will know exactly how you treat your father. I gathered the recorder and handed it to Hank. Keep this safe. You got it, Hank said. His presence alone was enough to make Cole step back, fists clenched, powerless. They left that night with curses under their breath, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. But I knew it wouldn't be their last attempt. Greed doesn't die, it mutates. Back in the study, I sat under Martha's photo and wrote in my notebook, Phase 2, reputation strike. Next move, take away what they value most, their standing in this community. The plan was already forming. They thought money was power. They were about to learn that shame can be far more devastating. The first shot had been fired in private. Now it was time to go public. Small towns like ours run on gossip. A whisper in the cafe spreads to the barber shop, then to the Sunday sermon, and by Monday, everyone's chewing the same bone. Cole and Diane had built their lives on appearances, polished, smiling, respectable. That was their weakness. I would feed the town exactly what it craved. It started with the church. Sunday morning, I walked in with Hank beside me. Heads turned. Folks hadn't seen me in weeks. After service, when the pastor invited anyone to share testimonies, I stood, leaning heavy on my cane. I want to thank this community for standing by me since Martha passed, I said. But I also want to share a warning. Even family can betray you when money's involved. Gasps stirred the pews. Diane's head snapped toward me from 3 rows up. Cole's jaw tightened like a vice. I held up the small recorder. These are the words of my own children, telling me I'm too old to live in my own home, planning to put me away while they sell the house I built with my hands. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Some covered their mouths. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The Thompsons in the front row actually turned and glared at Diane. I didn't play the tape. Not yet. I didn't need to. Just the mention of it was enough. I'll keep the details private for now, I finished. But let this be a reminder. Respect your parents, because one day, your children will be watching how you treat them. When I sat down, the silence was deafening. Diane's face was white as plaster. Cole stared straight ahead, frozen. The town now had its story. Monday morning, it grew teeth. At Riverside Diner, where half the town eats breakfast, Hank accidentally left a copy of the transcript on the counter beside his plate. By noon, the waitress had shown it to 3 regulars, and by evening, it was the only topic in town. Did you hear what Cole tried to do to his father? Diane too. Imagine putting your own daddy in a home just to snatch the house. By Tuesday, I couldn't walk into the grocery store without hearing it whispered between aisles. One woman actually patted my arm and whispered, "You're too kind, Mr. Miller. They don't deserve you." The next blow came Wednesday at the Chamber of Commerce. Cole strutted in as usual, ready to pitch himself for a board position. I arrived 10 minutes later with Victor at my side. When Cole started his speech about family values and integrity, Victor calmly cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should ask about the power of attorney documents you tried to coerce from your father," he said. The room fell silent. Cole's face went scarlet. "That's a private matter," he stammered. "Not when you use fraud to undermine community trust," Victor replied smoothly. "I have the papers here if anyone doubts me." The murmurs started, low and poisonous. Cole's campaign was dead before it began. That night, Diane called. Her voice cracked with desperation. "Dad, please, people are saying things. You don't understand how hard this is for me. My clients are asking questions." I let her talk, then said, "You wanted my house, Diane. You wanted me locked away. Did you think there wouldn't be a cost?" "Please, stop this," she begged. "We can fix it, I swear." "No," I said, voice flat. "You broke it. You live with it." And I hung up. By Friday, their reputations were in ashes. Cole avoided downtown entirely. Diane skipped church events for the first time in years. Friends stopped answering their calls. The town wasn't just whispering now. It was condemning. I sat on my porch that evening, the sun bleeding red over the rooftops, and breathed in the satisfaction. They'd wanted me invisible, tucked away in some facility. Instead, I was more present than ever, and they were the ones being erased. But I wasn't finished. Shame was only the prelude. The real knife was still waiting, and when I plunged it, they'd lose not just their pride, but every shred of security they thought they had. Shame was the appetizer. Now it was time for the main course, their wallets. I knew exactly where to cut. Years of raising them had shown me their weak spots. Diane's world revolved around her image as a successful realtor. Cole strutted around like a banker, but he was drowning in loans. They didn't just crave money, they needed it, like oxygen. Friday night, I opened my safe. Inside, neat folders, decades of records, the kind of paper trail only a man obsessed with order could keep. Mortgage co-signatures, business loans I'd quietly backed, even the car Diane drove, all under my umbrella. They'd used me as a guarantor so often they didn't even think about it anymore. They assumed I'd always cover their debts. Not anymore. By Saturday morning, I called 3 banks. Calm, polite conversations with managers I'd known for years. "Yes, this is Douglas Miller. I'd like to revoke my guarantee on loan number 3841. Yes, effective immediately. Click. One line cut. Yes, I'll also be removing myself from Diane Carter's auto insurance policy. She's on her own now. Click. Another line cut. By noon, I'd severed every financial umbilical cord they'd ever tied into me. The first explosion came Monday. Diane stormed into my driveway, heels clicking on the gravel. She didn't knock, just shoved the door open and marched into the living room. Dad, my car insurance lapsed. They said I was removed from the policy. Do you realize how embarrassing that was? I looked up from my newspaper. You're 37 years old, Diane. Pay your own insurance. Her face twisted, a mix of rage and disbelief. I have clients depending on me. Do you want me to lose business? I folded the paper carefully. You should have thought about that before trying to steal my house. She froze, then spat. You can't do this to us. Oh, I said softly. I already did. Cole's turn came the next day. His voice shook over the phone. Dad, the bank called. They want full payment on the loan. You were the guarantor. You pulled out. Why? I let the silence stretch. Then, because you wanted me gone, Cole. Now it's your turn to sweat for once. You'll ruin me, he hissed. No, I said. You ruined yourself. I just stopped cleaning up your mess. The line went dead. By Thursday, the results were visible. Diane's shiny SUV sat in front of her house with a bright orange repossession notice slapped across the windshield. Cole, once so puffed up, shuffled down Main Street with his tie undone, avoiding eye contact. The whispers had turned into open laughter. And me? I sat at the diner with Hank, sipping black coffee. People nodded, patted my shoulder, even bought my breakfast. The story had flipped. I was the wronged father who finally fought back. They were the villains everyone loved to hate. But I wasn't done. I had one final strike to deliver. The kind that wouldn't just shame them or empty their pockets, but leave them with nothing. No home, no claim, no comfort. The papers were already signed, sitting in Victor's desk drawer. When I revealed them, Diane and Cole wouldn't just lose me. They'd lose everything. Martha's photo watched me from the mantel that night. For once, her smile didn't sting. They'll never forget this, I told her. Not as long as they live. The lawyer's office was packed tighter than a courtroom. Not just me, Victor, and my 2 children, but half the damn town. Hank sat in the back row. Even Pastor Riley was there, hands folded like he was waiting for confession. Word had gotten around. Douglas Miller was about to end it. Cole sat rigid, sweat beading along his hairline. Diane's mascara had already smudged from tears she didn't want anyone to see. They'd begged me for a private meeting. I refused. I wanted witnesses. Victor opened a thick envelope and placed it on the desk. Mr. Miller asked me to read this publicly, so there will be no confusion. Cole shot me a look like he could still intimidate me. It bounced off. Victor cleared his throat. This is the amended estate plan and trust documents. Effective immediately, all assets belonging to Douglas Miller are transferred into the Miller Scholarship Foundation. This includes his home, land, savings, and personal effects. The beneficiaries, underprivileged students of Lincoln County. Gasps rippled through the room. Cole slammed a fist onto the table. You can't do this. Victor didn't flinch. He can. He already has. It's legally binding. Diane's voice cracked, desperate. Dad, please, you don't mean this. We're your children. I leaned forward, letting my cane rest against the desk, and looked them dead in the eye. Children don't plot to sell their father's house while he's still living in it. Children don't laugh about putting him in a home like garbage. You stopped being my children the moment you chose greed over blood. Her lip trembled. But we thought. You thought wrong. Victor laid down the final page, the one with my signature bold and clear. To be explicit, Cole Miller and Diane Carter are disinherited, with no legal claim to Mr. Miller's assets. The words hung heavy. The sound of Diane's sob filled the room. Cole's face twisted, rage, humiliation, defeat, all tangled. I stood slowly, leaning on the cane but holding my head high. The eyes of the town burned into them. Their reputations were ash. Their bank accounts were bleeding. And now, their inheritance was gone forever. I turned to the room. Let this be clear to everyone here. Respect isn't owed by age. It's earned, and it's mutual. They gave me none, so I returned the favor. Cole tried one last swing. You'll regret this, old man. I stepped closer, so he had to meet my eyes. No, son. You'll regret underestimating me. The room was silent. Diane buried her face in her hands. Cole looked like a man staring at a grave he'd just dug himself into. I tapped my cane once on the floor. Sharp, final. They wanted everything. Now they get nothing. And with that, I walked out, the sound of their collapse echoing behind me. They thought my death would be their payday. Instead, it became their sentence.